This is Truth Talk. We are truth-oriented knights out for the promotion of meaningful discussions to foster democracy. At Truth Talk, we believe the force of argument supersedes the argument of force. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of this show. The first episode, seemingly because the episode we have before this is the intro episode, and we think that this officially opens up our discussions, our debates on this platform. This is Truth Talk, and as you heard earlier, we believe that the force of argument supersedes the argument of force. And we are here to discuss, deliberate, differ, and have consensus on some certain aspects. 1960, 1961 saw a wave of African nations obtaining independence. The United Nations in its documents, in its release, ensured that these countries which were mandated by mostly the French, the British, and in some areas the Spanish, had their independence. In the case of Southern Cameroons, which was administered then with Nigeria, the British administered Southern Cameroons with Nigeria. They were given the option to have independence as was required by the United Nations, but their case was a bit different. The option to have total independence was left off a script, and they were given the options to either have independence by joining La République du Cameroun or to remain with Nigeria. The people were very much disturbed. We had people, proponents of an independent Southern Cameroons, but this wasn't a popular option as it was said. Article 1608 was that article which provided, which gave the British the mandate to hand over and give the people of Southern Cameroons independence. If we should look at the crisis, and if we should be honest enough, we would realize that the crisis sprung up from there, where the people of Southern Cameroons weren't given the option to have total independence. Now we are decades and decades into this, and 2016 saw a rise of people, and people who were demanding for people to, or the United Nations to go back to 1961 and right its wrongs. Article 1608 wasn't in their favor or wasn't enacted properly. Sir Kwakwa, welcome to the show, and have you gone through Article 1608, and what will you say about this particular article?
Yes, I've gone through it. I think it laid the groundwork for for autonomy for Cameroon, both British Southern Cameroons and British Northern Cameroons, as well as East Cameroon. So it gave the possible options that would be like the outcome for the plebiscite, that of independence joining the Federal Republic of Nigeria and independence joining the Republic of Cameroon. I think it because the initial thought was to know what the people want, right? Based on these findings, they should go on to a study, relate with the people, and know what they want. I think that they did not go for everything that people wanted, even if the option for autonomy, independence was not popular. It was a view or maybe the desires of some particular group of persons that was supposed to be part of the ballot. But they limited it to two questions, which means that they themselves, I think that was what they wanted. They didn't see the territory as able enough to be independent on its own. So they decided our future for us long before we could ever decide about it. So if they had given us the opportunity now, like it's okay, go in for these three questions, vote and let's see. We say okay, after all, we had three questions and this one was the one that came out standing. But now we'll never know because there were just two questions. So we can say it was not popular, but what if it was popular but not made known by the politicians who were in charge?
Okay, so I actually went ahead and printed out
Yeah, yeah.
Article 1608 to have a better understanding of this article and what it presented for the people of Southern Cameroons. I mean, it's a resolution. It stems from the resolution of Article 1350 of March 1959 concerning the future of the trust territory of the Cameroons under United Kingdom administration, in which the General Assembly recommended in uh, interim, which the General Assembly recommended inter alia that the administering authority take steps in a consultation with the United Nations plebiscite commissioner for the Cameroons under United Kingdom administration to organize under the supervision of the United Nations separate plebiscites in the northern and southern parts of the Cameroons under United Kingdom administration in order to ascertain the wishes of the inhabitants of the territory concerning their future. So as you said, um, for them to understand the wishes of the people, so as to have these people self-determination. That's in summary, self-determination. But these options which was presented to the people failed to do that because it picked out the most important or the a view which a whole lot of people had in mind, and which would have I would say which would have presented to us a future that we are not experiencing today, a rather peaceful future. Don't you think so? If we should have gone down that route of having autonomy.
I think in as much as the reason was our inability to be autonomous, I think we would have probably had some difficulties, but we would still be one people. But now, the situation would have not been the way it is because we think we are the idea of marginalization comes when some other person is doing it to you. But if it is within yourself, you will know how to fix it. You won't say I'm being marginalized. Who is doing the marginalization? So it would have been one people, one culture, I think one history, and I think it would have been better. It might not have
Yeah,
been
so
yes.
a whole lot of people now think that to resolve the crisis we are experiencing today, we should be able to trace back our steps right to 1960, 1961, when we can look at Article 1608 and try to do some adjustments or try to call on the United Nations to look at it in that manner. Um Thibaut Nagy, if you're familiar with Thibaut Nagy, he was the he was the assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs during President Trump's reign. He came out in a public statement a couple of weeks back, and he was referencing this particular aspect of Article 1608, and he says this on Ambazonia, and some folks still believing in United Nations Resolution 1608 happening. Sorry, let's be real. Only three ways Ambazonians can have self-determination: winning, in brackets, like US gained independence. Number two, negotiating a real referendum, or Cameroon government handing over territory. UN 1608 is a false god. So this was the statement he came out with, and it got a lot of people talking, and it got a lot of reactions. So he was called on to explain what he meant by this. Is it that the people cannot still have this uh, self-determination or autonomous nature of their state by referencing or going back to Article 1608? And this is what he had to say about that.
You don't need to, be disrespectful. But the continued belief of some very good people that somehow UN Resolution 1608 is going to be by some magic or supernatural force implemented is it's draining your movement for justice of some of its energy while people continue to focus on that and just sit back and say, fold their arms and they say, well, the international community is going to do this for us. One morning we're going to wake up and, behold, there's the Republic of Amazonia that the international community is delivering. While people continue to focus on that and just sit back and say, fold their arms and they say, well, the international community is going to do this for us. One morning we're going to wake up and, behold, there's the Republic of Amazonia that the international community is delivering. And all I can say is, I'm sorry, but it is not going to happen. But it's just not going to happen. And as long as there's some of the leaders of the movement who continue to, put their faith into this magical UN Resolution 1608, it is just going to delay the achievement of justice for the Amazonian people. I think I told you that all this time.
Okay, so that was his statement on Article 1608, saying that it is a false god. It's definitely not going to happen for the international community to come back or to go back as far back as Article 1608 to resolve this crisis. But he was also presenting a case for the people that, okay, you have different options or different routes to take. And if you must self determine yourself, or you must have your autonomy, then Article 1608 isn't the way. But a lot of people still have the view that if a law which has been passed, and when we go to court and to present a case or to win a case, you must present some of maybe the laws that have been passed or some of the resolutions which have been made but have not yet been enacted or have not been fully put in place. Isn't it wise to think that Article 1608, people should still hope on Article 1608 in self-determining Southern Cameroons?
We can hope if that was an option. Like the outcome of the deliberations at that time, like Britain is asked to meet the plebiscite council, consult the people to know their wishes, right? But then all the wishes was never represented in the ballot. So I would say that the election itself is the outcome of the election itself stands as evidence for the situation of independence with unification with La Republic. So that in itself is only precedent for the fact that the two nations are united and are one. But the problem I don't think is even with that resolution. I think it's with the subsequent outcome of the situation between in the federal system, where we lost our position in the federal system to the republic. That's where swallowed with the system. I think that's where the problem started.
Yeah,
Whereas we failed to get autonomy, but we allowed that failure to degenerate to something worse.
yeah,
Imagine that it was still a federal state, like from the time of 1961. It would not be like this. The vice president will actually have power to make a say within the affairs of the nation. But we don't have that situation because it has been swallowed up. And
mm,
now it is from a federal republic to a unity state, and then this is where we are now, federal a republic. And that identity, that culture of the Anglophones is totally wiped out.
yeah,
So I think we can go step by step, going back like we left in time, go back to the federal state where we have some power leverage that we can use to take another step. Like I mentioned when we were discussing this P program where you gave your plan, we need to be able to take what is given to us and then ask for more. But what we're asking for is too big a thing to get. That's what I think.
Mhm.
So I think if we say, okay, like you were asking, go back to the federal state, federalism, okay, let's try and see. If the situation still persists, then we say, okay, we ask for more. But we
I
are
think
seeing,
2017, I think 2017, the people, or 2016 leading into 2017, that was the demand on the table.
yes, that
That
was
was
the demand.
the loan demand on the table given by the consortium leaders. And
Yes.
this option, these people were regarded as terrorists, were apprehended, were arrested, and incarcerated. So, how do you say we go back into demanding for say federalism, and then hopefully after we get that, we think we might get independence? Isn't that just doing the same thing over and expecting a different result, and that's just being stupid?
The thing is, partitioning a country is never easy. When I was doing internship somewhere, and the person that was in charge of me wanted to was like a bit curious to test my knowledge about stuff. He asked me a question: how do you think that um, we can get independence as Southern Cameroons? How do you think we can get independence? Now I want to use my knowledge in some particular matters to like. He listened to me quietly, and then he made a statement that one UN diplomat told him that the only ink that we can use to apply for independence to the UN is in blood.
Mhm.
The ink for that document will be in blood. The signatures will be signed in blood. I don't get the message. They explain for that people will have to die for it to happen. So what I'm trying to say is independence is doesn't come easy, right? Like this guy said, we have to fight for it like the US got it from Britain, or like we
Yeah.
will give it to us, which is a difficult option, or the UN will come and intervene. Like we give it to us is nothing that is going to happen anytime soon. But I
Mhm.
think the aspect of a federal state is something that they can do it. So okay, it's still the same nation, but now the state system has changed from a United States to a federal republic, right? And then from there we have some powers on our own that we can actually decide things for ourselves. Look at Nigeria. Each state decides its affairs in a particular kind of way, right? But in Cameroon, it's not like that. The regional governors get everything from the central government, and they can only do anything for themselves. But we get a federal system, right? Like it was before. We can have a vice president from West Cameroon and whatever from East Cameroon. We have our governors or whoever, how we decide to put the system where they have that power. I think we can go to a table and even to the National Assembly, and we actually have debates where we can see this is what we want. Those things are lacking in the system now. So we don't
The
even have a
issue,
say.
it failed. That system failed, and the people are still very skeptical about going back to that system, hoping for it to be the option that will save them, because that particular federal system failed. It failed post 1961, and we have seen the intentions of the central government of Yaoundé, knowing that even if they declare federalism as the options they have, and the option which will be implemented, it will not be implemented in full for the people to have as much power as they need to go about their activities, and pass legislations, and do a whole lot of things. So it might be good on paper, but it will not come to fruition. It will not be good in action. That's
I
the
think
argument.
I think we have learned from our lesson, right? That anything that we are coming will come with lay down rules that cannot be discarded easily. If you look at post
The
1961,
constitution, the constitution of 1961 said that that particular constitution will not be tampered by anyone, and it was indeed tampered by President Ahidjo of La République du Cameroon. That was the constitution, and that was the agreement that bound that constitution. But then it was broken.
I think why it was broken is because I blame the West Cameroon politicians, because they had a mediator who established that system, right? But I don't think any of them stood out or came out and said, no, this thing is coming to change the constitution, right? This is how it was at the beginning. It cannot be like this. But I think all the functions and all those who were there at that time sat down, watched Ahijo do it. He took it bit by bit. It's not like it just happened in a day. The past were reducing, and at one point, it's okay. I'm doing it, these guys are not backing. Let me just take everything, and he did it. So I think the failure came from them. And if they had caught the UN in back, so okay, the constitution we had in 1961 or in 1960, this is not what we're having now. Let's go back to what we have, or what we had, and
Funcha led a delegation to the United Nations, but the United Nations didn't pay attention to what he had to say and what his delegation had to say regarding this. How the system or Southern Cameroon has been engulfed by La République du Cameroun. He presented his case at the United Nations, but nothing was done about it. So are we seeing it in the same light as Thibaut Nagy in some ways seen it, saying that the United Nations is not as powerful as we may think. It doesn't have that arm which would hit on the table and say it must be so and it must not be so. Should we look at the United Nations in that manner?
I think they have the power, but they use it the way it's fitting for the higher ups, for the powers that be. I think that the forces that implement the wishes of the UN, right? And if in a situation where you have countries like the Big Five saying that the UN has passed this resolution and we're
And
going to
that's the
see,
problem. That's the
yeah,
problem. We will never, we will, in maybe 1% of the cases in the world, out of 100%, see these big five come to a consensus and say that, okay, we are passing this. In most cases, more often than not, you'll have a single party or single body, or two of them or three of them veto that bill. And the veto power. If one party should say no, then and four parties should say yes. It doesn't go by a popular vote. It goes
obviously.
by the five people, the five parties approving a particular bill. If we're talking about a bill, if a single party should say no, then it goes that way.
Yeah,
And we're not,
that's
and we're never going to have that, because we have the world which is polarized right now. We have, say, the US on one side with Britain and France, and then you have China and Russia on the other side. They will most often than not oppose what the other three have, the allied forces or the allied powers.
that's the problem. That's why I said they have the power, but the powers that be will use it the way it benefits them. Like if I veto something, it means that it doesn't favor me, right? If I go ahead, it means it favors me. So they use it among themselves for their own personal benefit. So that's why we down here who don't have the power at the higher up level, we suffer from it. So they have the power, but we cannot really rely on them. So it brings us back to the option of we fighting to get it, or like probably giving it to us. But
And
it's not
and
just
now this is the argument from a lot of the people who stand for a one Cameroon, and it is a very good argument. If the United Nations is this split, is this polarized, and we cannot get something reasonable from them by going about the struggle, why fight? Why not just accept the status quo and embrace the unitary state which is already in place, and just live with it? Because the United Nations would never come to your aid, as a lot of people are thinking. That's why a lot of people who think that we should remain as a united Cameroon, that's the argument they are making, and it's a very reasonable argument, don't you think?
actually it's reasonable for those who are out of Cameroon, right? For those who are in Cameroon, that argument for me, it doesn't make any practical sense to say, okay, since we have been there, let's just continue to be there, right? Just like the Israelites leaving Egypt to the promised land, and like that would be there. When we're there, we had cucumbers, we had garlic, we had these nice things, right? But they were suffering there. But now they're facing difficulty and are thinking about some other good time they were having there. No, I don't think that's the way we should think. Is it going? Is it the way it's supposed to be? These people are being marginalized. The fact that we're even fighting now means there's a problem. So that problem has to be solved. If it was all okay that we can manage, we'll not be here. But we're here, we have been there for 8 years, and there's nothing that comes up like a solution to the problem. So do we go back and say, okay, shamefully go back and say, okay, we accept, we'll be here. We cannot, all these lives have been lost should worth something. We should get something tangible out of this whole conflict. So we're
Okay.
going back to the, that's my take.
Yeah, I think your take is very much understood. But let's leave that particular talking point for now and digress a little bit into how the separatist leaders or fighters intend to achieve this. And one of the aspects which came up since 2016 and it has say degenerated into something more serious today is the aspect of school boycotts, the aspect of ghost towns, the aspect of lockdowns. So let's talk a little bit on that. Would you say the struggle is hijacking from the young ones of today, the kids of today, their future? We have the the various leaders come together and say we are not going to respect schools resumption. We are going to lock down the towns. We are going to lock down the cities. Uh, it hurts. It hurts the people so much. It hurts the young people of southern Cameroons who are craving for knowledge. It hurts the business people of southern Cameroons who want to make a living. It hurts a whole lot of people. So is this would you say the struggle has hijacked people's lives and put it on put it on not on a balance but on on a knife?
I think that we are suffering more now than we were in 2014 or 2015 and before. And for me, this aspect of schools not boycotting school resumption in September, for me, I don't understand the outcome of it. What purpose? Because at the end of the day, schools still take place, people still go to school, follow the system as in the national territory. So what's the purpose? What do they intend to achieve? Just disturb, don't go to school for 2 weeks, lockdown, and then at the end of the day, after the lockdown, schools still go on. So
Mhm.
what are we what is the purpose? Is it just to stop schools from starting when it's supposed to start and allow schools to go ahead to function the way it's supposed to function when the time comes, or just don't want to follow the program of La Republic? I still don't get the reason. Because
Okay.
when kids don't go to school, okay, if it happens for the whole year, like it happened in 2016, where schools were locked for that year between 2016 and 2017, it makes some sense that, okay, there's an impact. Even then, it's a negative impact, but at least people will tend to say, okay, these kids have to go to school, they have to be educated. You cannot have a nation of uneducated youth. It breeds a gap in the future where you have a lot of illiterate, right? But if you start for 2 weeks and then everything goes over, and then schools are going on back in Bamenda and in the northwest and the southwest normally. So, what was the reason of that 2 weeks lockdown?
The argument presented by the various factions, uh, uh, the interim government, as they put it, the Ambazonian Governing Council, um, the argument they present, especially Dr. Cho Ayaba, says it's all about a show of dominance. It's all about who has the power in this region, who says what in this region, and does it apply? Does it is it shown in the manifestation down in this region? And it's all about civil disobedience to pass across a particular message saying that we reject the people who are imposing school resumption on this particular date. It's all to a show of force. Who has the force in this region? Isn't that a reasonable idea to call for a school boycott, say maybe the first 2 weeks, and maybe they go back to schools subsequently. But then they still call for people not to turn up into the government schools, but to rather go into private schools and the community schools. That's been their take. Isn't that reasonable?
And in that with that explanation is very, very reasonable. I think now it makes sense that you are fighting a system, and everything that is organized and comes from the agenda of that system, you should disagree with it totally. okay, schools in Cameroon, like Republic, the system starts on the 9th, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, in our own Amazonia, let's give it 2 weeks further and start at that time. It makes sense that you have that control, that power, and all that. And saying that people should go more, should attend mission and private schools also makes sense because if you fight the government, you shouldn't go to their schools, right? Because that's what you're trying to get rid of from your territory. Eventually, if you get what you want, those schools become useless. So you should start using your own resources within your own territory. So it makes sense that they want to use Amazonian resources, which are, first of all, the human capital, which will come from the people themselves. And then the people that have invested in that territory will promote their own businesses. School is a business, whether I would say it or not. So I think the private schools also now will tend to benefit from those things, which for me makes sense. That don't go to government schools, but attend the private schools and the mission schools.
The call for this lockdown had a serious backlash from a whole lot of people. We had the United Nations Embassy in Cameroon. It came out in a statement condemning this particular aspect. It says the U.S. Embassy condemns all forms of violence against civilians, and we are deeply concerned by recent incidents and threats in Cameroon's northwest and the southwest regions, as we have been throughout the crisis. Moreover, as classes resume in the coming days, we cannot forget that every child has a right to education. Schools are sanctuaries for learning, and children must not be prevented from attending classes. We reaffirm the need for peaceful approaches to address complex political and security issues. That was the United Nations, the United States Embassy in Cameroon, Yaoundé. We have other people who came out with a serious backlash against this. We have people like Julius Fondong, who is a political affairs officer at the United Nations. He says, no self-respecting international organization or civilized nation shall ever deal with or recognize a group that uses the education of children as a weapon to achieve a political goal. We also have uh, uh, Okala Bilai, Governor Okala Bilai of the Southwest region or of the southern zone of southern Cameroon. Uh, he called for, this is all before school's resumption. These were the statements. So he said, today we have invited all the stakeholders, mainly the officials, the local official elected, who have been instructed that next week all of them should go to their base to accompany the children to schools to demonstrate that the school is very important. The mobilization should be a general mobilization. The members of parliament should go back to assist the resumption of the school. Now, it presents to us a case, all these arguments and these backlashes, it presents to us a view that the people of southern Cameroons reject school and do not want school, and it is a very say confusing view when people listen to this from the outside. It seems as though the proponents or the people advocating for southern Cameroons actually are against school in general. And then you even have the apostolic nuncio to Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea coming out in a statement as well, uh, calling out the people advocating for Southern Cameroons. He says violence comes from evil and the peace comes from God, and the calling on the kids to go back to school, calling on people to send their children back to school. So it gives one the view that the leaders are against school. Is that the view you have as well? And what do you have to say about these public statements?
But if you noticed before, I asked what was the purpose of the lockdown, but you gave a view that is a show of force, right? Not necessarily to stop people from going to school, but to show who is in control of that territory. I believe all what has been said is propaganda to give a message that is not accurate, right? It is not about kids not going to school, but having control about when they go to school. So they don't want them not to go to school entirely, but to tell them when and how they can go to school. So in a way, making it sound like Southern Cameroonians don't like education is not entirely true. They want it to be on their terms, not on the terms of the person they are fighting against. They're against La Republic, so they cannot go with their program. They organize their own program and follow on from there.
Okay. It also asks the question. It begs the question, like the statement from the Apostolic Nuncio saying, "Violence comes from evil, and peace comes from God." So it begs the question: who is the proponent of violence? Who is the one being violent, and who is the one who is bringing peace? Uh, when such public statements are made, and they always try to distance themselves from attacking some particular people, is it, in your own take, isn't it disingenuous to come out in statements like this? It's
I see stand for the fire is propaganda. When you say violence is from the devil and peace is from God, I will ask the nuncio to tell me how the Israelites got possession of Israel. They killed, they conquered, they decimated and annihilated nations at the command of God. So where is the violence now? Was that one from the devil or from God? So we cannot really use the argument based on God, peace, devil, evil. I think it's circumstantial what the people are going through that has made them to be in that situation. They have a right to fight for a situation that will benefit them and make them live happy ever after. So we can say it's peace, God, but to me it's all propaganda.
Yeah,
If
I
it's
mean, you would have it in a situation where, or one will beg the question as well, saying that, okay, now you're condemning violence, and in the same statement calling for school resumption, it's putting out a clear message that the proponents of violence, or the people who are being violent, are the
a secret.
separatists, and the separatist leaders are calling for this violence. But I mean, he was appointed in August of 2023. Um, his name Jose Avelino, and it begs the question: have you gone back to look at the history of the crisis and how it degenerated into this, and how it now resulted into people calling for schools shut down? And if you have, what public statement have you made regarding the slaughter of the kids in Gabu? What message, what public statement have you made regarding the slaughter of the people in Mamfe, in Kumba, the school kids in Kumba, and stuff like that? You have not made any public statements about this, but you are already, in a way, in an indirect manner, claiming that the Southern Cameroonian body fighting for independence are the people being violent, and the people bringing peace is the government of La République du Cameroon. Is that a clear analysis when somebody from the outside reads this message?
Yeah, I think that's what I got when I listened to that when I watched the video, right? It was sort of all vague, in a sense, not tackling the actual issues. Like when you say violence is this, peace is that, call the parties who is violent, who is peaceful, right? Because the boys are not just fighting themselves, they are fighting an enemy. Is that enemy just standing and receiving the punches? They're also punching. So when you come to make a statement like that, point all the parties involved and say stop the violence, give peace a chance. When you do that, those who are involved in it will know that, okay, I have a part to play in this situation. But once you talk like that, it points a finger to those who don't want what the government is proposing to take place as those who are perpetrating the violence. Because the government wants schools to go, and there are these persons who don't want school to go. And come and say, okay, violence is not the way, peace is the way. Now, who are you talking to? Those who are saying school should not go are those who are you are accusing as being violent. That's basically how I saw that statement. But if you had said that, okay, the government is like this, if you do like this, these guys can also allow this thing to happen and everybody's at peace. But you just come and you hit on it. You paint one person as a dark knight and one person as a white knight. It cannot work like that.
Yeah. Um, I mean, these statements are statements that I think they should have read through the statements and read the back of the statement. I mean, that's to read in between the lines before putting out such public statements. And it's sad that we're in a situation where we cannot point black as black and point white as white. But the 22nd of September, if we should leave that for a bit, the 22nd of September passed a few days ago, and we have the 1st of October coming in a few days. What do you remember of these days in history and these days, 2017?
Man, I remember those days. I stood in front of my door and I saw people passing with peace plants, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then where I was wasn't that really that violent, but then by the 7 p.m. news in the evening, we got the information about those who had died in Bamenda. And for the first time in the first of October, I saw what we see in movies where you see helicopters hovering in the air and shooting. I could see it live in Bamenda. I was like, is this a level now? And I realized I have gotten into something that is going to be serious. I knew from then that it would take a long time.
Mhm.
But we are hopeful that it gave us a different perspective that we can actually do things that we could not imagine before. People could go
Yeah.
to the street. I think it's based on the pain that they have been feeling throughout the years and they could no longer take it anymore as okay, if I die, I die. There's no say nothing, see krulo krulo. If I perish, I perish, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, people had gotten enough of it, and that was the year everything started. So for my take, I think it's a memory of when some persons decided to give their life for the future of others. So I hold it dear because I know some persons have sacrificed to make us see a possibility. Because of the persons who died, people started thinking that hey, if Cameroonians can actually do this, go to the streets, get shot at, give their lives to it, it means we can also do something. So I think that was the starting point of the inspiration and the motivation most people have to do something about the situation.
Okay. The crisis has escalated to what we have today. We are running up in a few minutes. Uh, the crisis has escalated to what we have today, and we have leaders who are now termed terrorists and leaders who are now seen as the devils. And 2 days ago, we had one of the prominent leaders in this war of independence, as they put it, picked up, arrested, and arraigned to a court, and uh, his crimes or the his crimes were read to him. Uh, I'm talking about Dr. Cho Ayaba Lucas. He was arrested in Norway 2 days ago, and he's still in detention. He's still answering questions, and he was arrested based on the investigations, as they put it, and the crimes levied against him is crimes against humanity, incitement of violence, and war crimes. Have you heard of this news yet? And what's
No,
your take if you have?
well, I haven't, but as just from the way you have said it, I think that's how the system works, right? It's like we say, scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? When we say we can talk about the incitement of or inciting of violence, where it's true, he has been talking about the whole crisis, what people should do. But we say crimes against humanity, I don't think he has come to Cameroon to fight the war, unless he was a fighter that I don't know of. I just think all these things is based on power, right? The state of Cameroon is, I think, is in partnership with Norway. I don't understand how he's being arrested in Norway. Is it was he arrested by the government there or
The police
where?
there. Yeah,
So
the police arrested him, and he's still in detention right up to now.
it's not even Interpol can say, okay, you have committed an international crime that you are wanted. So what's the relationship between him being arrested in Norway and the crimes that he is accused of committing in Cameroon? Because
Well, I think the what is presented is Norway is not going to be a safe ground for people to sit back and incite violence in countries across the world, or not in Norway. So they are not going to have their country as a sanctuary for people to sit back and commit crimes in maybe their own countries or in other countries.
then you repatriate the person. Say, okay, leave my country. I give you 10 days, I give you 20 days, I give you 50 days to leave my country, right? Not arresting the person. He has not committed any crime within your territory. So as a person in that country, he's free from any crime. When you arrest him based on things happening in another country, it doesn't make any sense unless it's an international matter that there's an international warrant for his arrest. So doing that for me, I just believe that the story is not clear.
Yeah. Yeah. So um, with these crimes levied against him, a lot of other leaders, some of them actually jubilated, saying that he indeed has been inciting and he has been going to the extremes. I mean, and then you have the sympathizers as well. But then let's watch and see what happens in that particular case. But just to say this as a statement, saying that Norway is part of the ICC. The ICC has called for the arrest of Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is going along with the war in Gaza, and in a way he is saying this is a war of self-defense, and this is a war of getting back our people who have been kidnapped. Uh, if the Norway through the ICC has called for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu, then we are also calling on Norway through the ICC to call for the arrest of President Paul Biya of La République du Cameroon, who called for a war, or who declared war on the people of southern Cameroons. Isn't that fair to say that the Norwegians should also go in this same manner? Because we have Norway as a big brother, and in the crisis between Palestine and Israel, we have the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords of 1993, where we had the Palestinian movement and Israel come and sign an agreement and sign for a two-state solution. And Norway ensured that these people negotiated. And if Norway is rather not ensuring that the two warring parties in this region negotiate, but is rather apprehending or arresting a single party and not arresting the other, then it is being dishonest, and it is not doing things in the right manner. What's your fair analysis about this?
That's what I term in my own political dictionary as international hypocrisy. Because the people who have committed, who have incited worse things than what this Ayaba Cho guy has done, basically he's just talking about it, do this, do like that, giving instructions. There are people who are actually doing stuff, like you have mentioned Nathaniel, what he's doing. But nothing is being done about it. Those people, they do things based on what can come as a fallout. If you arrest Ayaba Cho, there is nothing that anybody can do about it. If you arrest Nathaniel, there's a lot of things that can happen based on the fact that some people are in support of what he's doing, and those who are in support of him are very powerful. So it depends on, at the end of the day, who is backing you up. And if the person backing you up is not that powerful, they will deal with you without any regard. So I think that basically he has been arrested because he has nobody to back him up. They cannot arrest Nathaniel because those who are backing him up are powerful enough to deal with anybody attempting to do the arrest. So that's where we are.
Okay, let's conclude on a particular note, saying that Norway should act fair. Public statements from external figures should be fair, and in all, people should be fair in their analysis and in their stance. Is that a good note to end at?
One thing I don't know, I didn't get the last statement. The line was breaking. First of all, I'm kind of disappointed when I hearing about what happened in Norway, because my impression of that country, based on research, is I think if not the first, it's one of the top 5 most democratic nations in the world. So when you hear that kind of action taking place in a country that is seen as one of the most democratic nations, you begin to ask the question, where is the world headed? If you cannot
Yeah.
rely on the people who created democracy, then imagine a country like Cameroon where there's nothing like democracy there. We are just doomed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a clarion call for the people, or for Norway, to show its superiority in democracy by acting fair in saying that if they are arresting somebody like Ayaba Cho for inciting violence, then they should issue an arrest warrant as well for people like Paul Biya and all the members of his cabinet, the members of his government, because they have been inciting as well, inciting a whole lot, and we see the crisis escalated to what we have today. And also calling on other international bodies and other people who react to this crisis from the external, saying that they should also be fair in their analysis and in their stance. Like if we're talking about the apostolic nuncio, we should expect a more serious statement from him, a more critical statement from him, looking at the crisis from both ends. That's the note I'm ending at. And Ngabu was with us all the way. I mean, he's been on and off, but any last statement, Ngabu, before we call it a quit for today?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to at least make my statement concerning the Article 1608. If I can say well, I think the Article 1608 is an article by the UN resolution, which gives people like the Southern Cameroonians the opportunity to follow up and get what they deserve. But then I don't know if it is giving something and holding it back, because from what I remember, I think a lot of people have filed diplomatic letters and follow-ups and made a lot of things to the United Nations, but this has bounced back or has fallen on deaf ears and things like that. So I don't know exactly what the people needs to do. So they have resorted into this act of that is in the armed conflict, which means they have made up their mind that if you cannot give it to us as you have said it, then we have to get it on our own. And I think looking at the things critically, nobody will really blame them for that. But then when we go to the other side and we are asking questions, we then say, is it worth the sacrifice? So we want to call on any stakeholder, any person who can really come into this comment, tell us the way so that we can advise our brothers and sisters and we work together to see how we can return to peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ngabo, for your concluding statement. We hope to interact again on these particular issues subsequently, and we hope to broaden people's perspectives and understanding of these issues, and hope to, through these discussions and through these debates, find lasting solutions, come to a consensus. When we debate our issues, we come to a consensus, and maybe with this we find the solutions that we need. Thank you, and from me and from Truth Talk, it's bye-bye.